guten Morgen und willkommen zu der dieswöchigen Live-Übertragung von Tourismus Namibia. Mein Name ist Frank Steffen, ich bin der Redakteur der Tourismus Namibia sowie auch der Allgemeinen Zeitung, wie Sie wahrscheinlich wissen werden. Willkommen zur Show. Wir haben sehr viele und interessante Nachrichten. Außerdem haben wir auch ein Gespräch später mit Chloe Dürr. Das blenden wir natürlich ein. Das ist ein Gespräch, das wir wie immer in Englisch führen, weil Chloe nun mal englischsprachig ist. Das wird wieder von Henties Bay aus sein, aber sie nimmt uns von da aus auf ein, zwei Trips raus, außerhalb von Henties. Und dann haben wir natürlich immer diese Rubrik To the Point, und da haben wir uns diesmal erlaubt, statt einem Interview ein paar Ausschnitte zusammenzuflechten. Und zwar hatten wir einen interessanten Vortrag in der NWG in Windhoek, aber gucken Sie sich das später selber an. Als erstes sind jetzt erstmal unsere Topics dran. Allerdings, bevor wir die Topics durchnehmen, also unsere Tagesthemen, will ich beinahe sagen, gucken wir uns nur schnell, was der Markt uns zu bieten hat. Ja, Topics, Themen, eigentlich ganz interessant. Ich habe diesmal so ein paar mehr rausgesucht. Nicht nur einfach Nachrichten, sondern auch so ein paar Neuigkeiten, will ich eigentlich eher sagen. Das Wichtigste ganz vorne dran ist Tosco. Tosco, da sehen Sie, hat ein neues Prinzip rausgebracht, das heißt eine neue Kampagne gestartet und arbeiten im Prinzip zusammen mit Han, RNF, EcoAwards und Recycle Lab. Das ist insofern ganz interessant, weil die eben nicht nur immer wieder Aufräumungsarbeiten und große Aufräumaktivitäten starten wollen, sondern sie wollen halt, dass das wirklich permanent endlich klappt und dass grundsätzlich aller Dreck aufgehoben wird, beziehungsweise gar nicht erst am Boden landet. Und diese Initiative ist halt, es geht darum, unsere Umgebung zu bewahren, das ja ganz klar ist. Denn sehr oft hat es eine nachteilige Auswirkung auf unseren Tourismus und natürlich auch ganz klar auf unser Wild. TOSCO steht übrigens für Tourism Supporting Conservation, also es geht da hauptsächlich um Projekte, die einerseits von der Tourismusindustrie initiiert werden, andererseits aber auch von außen unterstützt werden. Wenn Sie da gerne mit unterstützen wollen, das kann man da auf dem Poster jetzt nicht so gut erkennen, weil das alles ein bisschen klein ist. Also die E-Mail-Adresse ist admin@tosco.org. Also admin ganz normal, ADMIN, und dann Tosco, TOSCO und dann .org, ORG. Ja, das ist Tosco, ich finde das ganz gut und ich weiß, dass Han das groß unterstützt. Als nächstes habe ich ein Foto rausgesucht von der Facebook-Seite von ERA. ERA steht, wie gesagt, für Elephant Human Relations Aid und ich fand das einfach ein witziges Foto. Das sieht beinahe aus, als ob der umfällt, der Kerl ist, beziehungsweise das ist eine die, glaube ich sogar. Und es steht halt unter der Überschrift Patrol left 3 days ago, also die nächste Patrouille ist jetzt gerade vor 3 Tagen raus. Es geht natürlich darum, diese Tiere zu schützen und zu machen. Foto ist übrigens von Christine Winter, also finde ich schon interessant, wie sie das aufgenommen hat. Und das ist natürlich immer eine schöne Sache, die kümmern sich da oben im Moab und diesen Gegenden und eigentlich der ganze Nordwesten kümmern die sich ungemein um diese Tiere. Gesprochen von kümmern sich um Tiere. Das nächste ist Desert Lines Human Relations Aid. Das ist DELRA. Das ist natürlich traurig. Ich meine, dieses Foto ist wirklich traurig, aber manchmal muss man den Realitäten einfach ins Auge sehen. Das hier ist die Löwin XPL 75 und die Fotos sind, glaube ich, von Inky Mant aufgenommen. ist natürlich traurig und sie trauert natürlich und wir alle trauern, wenn sowas ist. Man hat diese Löwin einschläfern müssen. Man kann ja einfach sehen, es hilft hier nicht, dass man wartet, bis sie regelrecht vom Hunger umkommt. Und zwar, was passiert ist, dadurch, dass eben im Nordwesten eben der Regen noch nicht so viel gefallen ist wie in sonstigen Teilen des Landes, sind natürlich die ganzen Antilopen und eben deren Beutetiere sind abgewandert weiter rüber gen Osten, also in die Richtung von Etosha. Die Tiere können natürlich nicht nachwandern. Das hier ist übrigens ein Foto von ihr vor einem Jahr. Und diese Tiere können nicht hinterher wandern. Sie ist obendrein auch ziemlich alt schon. Und so ist man zu dem Schluss gekommen, dass man die einschläfern muss. Und das ist kein eben mal so gefasster Entschluss, bevor da großer Widerstand und Aufruhr wieder ist. Dies hier war ein Entschluss, der gemeinsam zwischen Delra und den sogenannten Line Rangers, die da oben sehr tätig sind, und dann eben dem Umweltministerium selber gefasst wurde, wo man einfach gesagt hat, Leute, es hilft ja nicht. Manchmal müssen wir uns in diese Natur einmischen. Wir können ja nicht zusehen, wie dieses Tier elendig krepiert. Und in dem Fall hatte man sich entschieden, die Löwin einzuschläfern. Aus dem einfachen Grunde, in ihrer großen Not fingen die plötzlich an, Haustiere zu reißen. Also da waren schon 2 Hunde draufgegangen und auch Kühe und solche Scherze. Und dann ist es ja nur eine Frage der Zeit, dann wehrt sich der Farmer sowieso und erschießt womöglich das Tier. Und das ist brutaler, als wenn es wenigstens auf diese Art euthanasiert wurde. Also in dem Falle, ich denke, das ist schon die richtige Entscheidung. Es ist immer einfach hier, wo wir hier im Studio oder im Schreibtisch oder im Wohnzimmer sitzen, wenn wir dann einfach sagen, ja, aber musste das sein, hätte man den Löwen nicht retten können und. Ja, natürlich. Darum besteht ja Delra. Wenn sie es irgendwie können, versuchen sie immer, diese Tiere zu retten. Aber hin und wieder geht es einfach nicht. Und dann bin ich immer der Meinung, dass man deren Entscheidung respektieren sollte, denn die wird nicht einfach gefasst. Die haben wahrscheinlich mehr Zeit für Löwen, als wir jemals hoffen haben zu können. Ja, und dann aber ein schönes Foto mal, Wasser in Etosha. Das sieht doch ganz schön aus. Wasser ist nach Etosha reingeflossen und zwar auf der Höhe von, das nannte sich früher immer 2 Palmen, also 2 Palms. Inzwischen ist da, glaube ich, nur noch eine von über. Spielt keine Rolle, ist eine Wasserstelle, so nordöstlich gelegen von Namutoni. Und da war das interessant, also der Umuramba Ovambo entsteht etwa 5 Kilometer entfernt von Zinsabis, also ein ganzes Ende nordöstlich von Etosha. Und mündet dann aber in der Etosha-Pfanne, und zwar in der kleineren Pfanne, die oberhalb von Namutoni zu finden ist. Und das Auffanggebiet beträgt etwa 15.000 Quadratkilometer, ist also schon recht groß. Und dann sagte aber der Zuma Tsumeb, der die Fotos geteilt hat, oder aufgenommen hat auch, dieser Fluss fließt nur bei starkem Regen. Und er hatte diese Fotos auf der Internetseite von vom Unguma Privatpark, gleich neben dem Etosha Nationalpark, aufgenommen. Ja, und der war, wie gesagt, am Wochenende da reingeflossen. Dieses Foto habe ich auch nochmal von Björn Basler dazu gesetzt. Das ist einfach zu schön. Er hatte das an die Republikaner geschickt und die hatten das veröffentlicht. Und es ist einfach ein herrliches Foto. Das ist oben vom Turm bei Okakwe rüber in Richtung Pfanne. Und das ist einfach zu schön, um es zu glauben. Also sowas sieht man ganz selten, dass das derart grün ist und man sieht ja, die Wolken sind immer noch da. Und das ist einfach mal schön, die Etosha-Pfanne so zu erleben. Der Nachteil ist natürlich, dass man ein bisschen weiterfahren und suchen muss, bevor man Tiere sieht, denn die haben natürlich viel Wasser jetzt im Feld und mehr als genug zu fressen. Aber ich denke, den Tieren ist es zu gönnen nach dieser extremen Dürre, die wir all die Zeit hier hatten. Das war nicht so ganz einfach für Tier und Mensch natürlich auch, aber ich denke vor allen Dingen die Tiere. Ja, und dann habe ich nochmal 2 Fotos rausgesucht, und zwar hatte Claudia Reiter die aufgenommen, und zwar hier in Windhoek gab es eine große Demonstration in der vergangenen Woche. Wir hatten das auch in der Allgemeinen Zeitung. Und da geht es im Kurzen um das Fracking mal wieder. Und hier haben sich die Friday for Future, die jüngere Generation, zusammengefunden. und haben demonstriert gegen Fracking, also die Ölsuche generell. Tut mir leid. Auf jeden Fall, und da geht es eben ganz kurz darum, dass die Polizei eigentlich so ein bisschen Sarkasmus an den Tag gelegt hat und wissen wollte, ob sich das überhaupt lohnt, 50 Mann losmarschieren zu lassen, nachdem sie vorher verboten hatten, dass es mehr als 50 sein dürfen. Das ist natürlich aufgrund der Covid-Regeln, das ist ja auch in Ordnung, aber dann so Sarkasmus, der war nicht gefragt. Und ich finde es schade, dass die Polizei oder der Polizist, der dann so sarkastisch war, dass der dann eigentlich ja nur bewiesen hat, dass er gar nicht weiß, worum es geht. Es geht nämlich ganz einfach immer noch um die Ölsuche oben im Kavango, die unser Grundwasser bedroht, die Tierbevölkerung, also die ganze Ökologie da oben total und ernsthaft bedroht. Und ich denke, langsam wächst der Druck, dass die Leute einfach verstehen, auch die Politiker, dass dies ernsthaft ist. Die Demo ging nicht weiter bis zum Landwirtschaftsministerium und denen wurde eine Petition von der Organisation Soul überhändigt. Und ich denke, das wird nicht das letzte Mal sein. Das fängt jetzt erst an, richtig in Gang zu kommen. Ja, das wären unsere Nachrichten für heute. Als nächstes unterhalten wir uns mit Chloe Dürr, die befindet sich immer noch in Henties Bay und das machen wir also online über unser Internet. Aber bis dahin gucken wir uns schnell nochmal ein bisschen Werbung an und danach ist Destinations. Hi, welcome back. We will now be joined by Chloe Dürr. She's still down in Henties and she's prepared a couple of information clips for us, but we'll obviously want to talk to her live. Hi, Chloe, are you there?
Hi, I'm going away alone today, but yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so you say it's quite cold down there.
Yeah, it's overcast today and very windy. So you should see my setup behind the screen here. It's actually quite hilarious.
Okay, so if we want to spot you, we'll speak very long to you so as to see how bit by bit you become smaller and smaller on account of the cold.
Yeah, I think so.
No, just talking about, you had two themes which you wanted to take us through today.
Yes, I mean I'll start off with the route from Henties to Windhoek because before doing video calls I was doing that weekly and every single week was completely different. But this was along the dust road, not the tar road, and I can't actually explain how beautiful it was because it is. Every time you drive it is completely different, and it takes you right past Spitzkoppe, which some days is completely crowded by clouds. On other days, it's and as I was setting for I saw the desert come to life, and it was just interesting for me to drive that route so regularly and see the changes. And so often when you think of Spitzkoppe, you think of the arch and just rocks, but from a distance, it's also exceptionally beautiful. And it's just once again continuing our theme about travel being more about the journey rather than just the destination. And I know this isn't necessarily a destination, you're driving, but I mean you wouldn't mind driving if this was the kind of environment that you were surrounded by. And I think, yeah, it was completely unexpected. I just found the quickest route to Windhoek, and it just happened to be on a dust road that took me past some of the most beautiful scenery. So actually, I want to try and drive it for a week solid and see how during a week the scenes change. because it really is an exceptional route.
Yeah, by the way, that is the route most people actually take down to Henties, because anybody who's got a bakkie or a car that's sort of halfway got the proper height, they will always go that route, because you obviously also, as you go in past all those Damra traders who are offering their semi-precious stones and other sort
Yes.
of products as you turn in just above Yusakos.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's the
But I
only.
mean, it's a beautiful route.
No, no, absolutely. And I must say, some of those pictures are very special, because I can't remember having previously seen that sort of cloud cover halfway up the mountain. Normally it stands in the blue sky and it's totally dry outside. This time you were able to get some shots where you can actually see some greenery climbing up as you look at the slopes.
Yes, I think with this rain season, the scenery in the middle we haven't seen before. So I think photographers are just going, because we don't know when we'll see these kinds of scenes again.
Yeah.
So I just got quite excited by that.
No, sure. Anybody would have, I'm sure. The only thing that I have to say at this stage, I mean, you will know by now, but anybody who drives that route is well advised to be very careful, because there are a couple of what we typically call in Afrikaans slaggate, quite deep dust sort of holes in the street and so on. So it's always good to just be careful. It's not the road where you mustn't think you're on Kyalami or somewhere.
No, because it can look deceiving. A couple of times I've been completely airborne because of huge dongas that you don't notice because the sand looks so clear. So I would agree that you have to drive it very carefully.
Yeah, especially if you're close to Spitzkopje. There's that particular part of road where you've got a lot of these potholes which are well hidden because of the sand that's shoved in when they grade the road, and so it's very deceiving.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, you've got some more for us?
Yes, well, just continuing a little bit up the coastline, I think before I told you a little bit about the salt kind of mining that was going on near Volthus. But another beautiful thing about the entire coastline is the masses of flamingos that tend to flock there. And I think I previously mentioned how I absolutely got absorbed, and with my tackies on and everything, I went running into the what I thought was a dry pan, which ended up to be like deep mud, and I got completely stuck, but surrounded by these beautiful flamingo. And I have to say, I'm not sure if the video is playing on your side. I can't see, but I have to say
yet,
that
but I'm sure you can play it in. There we go.
This is Puros.
Okay, so let's first do Puros quickly.
Okay, let's do Puros. One of my favorite places. This was actually when I first arrived in Namibia. This was the first kind of place that we decided to go to, and I have to say, anytime that we have some an extended period of time to spend somewhere, we immediately go to Puros. It's become one of our little family destinations, really. And I have to say, there's something so charming about that entire conservancy. And it's the people are so welcoming. The scenery is quite honestly unlike anything I've seen before, and because of the white in the sand, all the colors seem to stand out so much. And I actually recently just developed this film, so that's why this is quite delayed. But these were all taken on my film camera. Some of them aren't entirely in focus, but anytime I can shoot film, I do. And what I loved seeing was, well, what I learned so much about was how the Himba and the Herero, are of the same tribe, and how, experiencing the relationship between the two and learning about the different cultures. But visiting the Puros Living Museum, also an unbelievable scenery. I mean, just look at those rolling hills in the background. It was, it really made a mark on me, and I've actually never been able to forget it, because that scenery is so romantic, how you just have those kind of dusty hills, But you learn so much at all of these living museums, and it really does help with the preservation of the culture, which we speak about all the time. But I can't stress enough how important it is to support communal conservancies when you do travel, because you'd be so surprised at how rich your holiday will be. There also are desert elephant and everything that visit you at your campsite here. But I chose specifically to focus on the culture today, and
Yeah.
and just kind of the wealth of experience that you can have, in the most remote area that you wouldn't quite expect.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to have such picturesque scenery.
And tell me
But
when you,
but it
yeah, sorry.
no, that's okay.
No, I was just wondering. So while you were there, did you go up further towards Orupembe, or did you just take the Uarosip down?
No, we did. We went towards Orupembe, and we really did just spend time. We just positioned ourselves at Puros, and then did a route around there. And I'd love to actually write a little bit more about that route that we took, because it was really beautiful. And Kwakuland at the moment is really battling, because while the rest of us have all had a lot of rain, they've yet to have any. So we it's if you do have gap and time to go travel, I would definitely say go and support Puros and Kwakuland, and I think they're support at the moment without being able to grow anything and stuff without the rain. So I think that's really what pushed me to speak about it today.
Yeah.
But just very special memories.
And it is special at the moment still. Kwakuland needs to be visited now, especially if you're somebody who likes wild camping or wants to be out and about in these communal conservancies and make use of their campsites, because they really make quite an effort in making you feel welcome. The reason why I'm saying that is they're busy finalizing roads they actually want to tar the road from Opuvo right up to Okongwati and so on. Now, I know this is harsh country and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but to go down from over to Etangwa and go over to Van Zyls Pass and actually go down the pass and then land up in the Marienfluss. I mean, all those things are adventures which you will not be able to experience so much longer anymore, because more and more of those areas are starting to become mining areas and all types of things. So now's the time to go there, because it's a very special place. I used to live there for 3 years, so I think I know a bit about
Oh,
Kwakuland.
really?
Yeah.
I
No,
have
that's
to
why
say
I
that
know.
Marienfluss is next on.
Yeah, look, I mean,
Marienfluss is definitely.
yeah, look, if you go from Puros up in that valley towards Orupembe, if I say valley, it's really a flat piece of ground. It seems endless, and don't ever expect to drive fast. That's the other thing. So I always remember that when you end up in Marienfluss, where suddenly you've got that red sand and it's flat as you could imagine. You just find yourself suddenly racing along at 100 kilometers an hour, just for the sake of being able to drive faster for a change. Because if you've done this for something like 2-3 days, then suddenly you just feel free and you just need to do something. But it's not always well advised to do it, but I've never seen anybody not do it. It's funny how suddenly you drive that much faster simply because the road is so much better. And then obviously you end up at Camp Synchro and those sort of things. And it's a magic place. It must be the most remote place I know, or had the privilege of getting to know. Yeah, so Puros is a nice excursion if you go via Korvarep and those areas.
Exactly. No,
Anyway.
it's worth visiting.
Yeah. Now I must quickly make sure with Matthias, do you have those flamingos? No, so we'll have to store that for a next occasion, because I think that's why you automatically switched over, but nothing lost there. So we'll just make sure that we put that material into place next week, and then we'll show you some more. Until then, Chloe, keep well, and thank you for having contacted us. We'll talk a bit later.
Okay, great.
Ja, das war Chloe Dieu in einem relativ kalten Henties Bay, wie man sehen kann. Und ja, ganz nett. Die Flamingos haben wir leider verpasst. Irgendwie ist das nicht bei uns angekommen. Sie schickt uns nämlich diese kleinen Videoclips immer dann zu und dann spielen wir die ein. Aber in dem Fall hat es halt nicht geklappt. Das müssen wir dann in der kommenden Woche nochmal nachholen. Aber trotzdem, Purus, Kaukoland, wirklich eine schöne Gegend. Und natürlich diese ganze Strecke zwischen Henties rüber zur Spitzkopje ist natürlich auch eine wunderschöne Gegend. Man muss natürlich auch so ein bisschen Unternehmergeist haben, also oder Unternehmungslust haben. Wer will, kann da sehr viel unternehmen. Da sind genügend Sachen, die man sich ansehen kann. Denn schon allein bei der Spitzkopje sind ja auch bekannterweise diese ganzen Buschmannszeichnungen und so weiter. Also das lohnt sich immer dahin zu fahren, denn bei der Spitzkopje gibt es ja auch genügend Gelegenheit, wo man sich einbuchen kann zum Campen oder in die Lodges in der Nähe oder wenn man von da aus rüber zum Erongo geht. Also da ist genügend, was man unternehmen kann, wenn man eben möchte. Ja, das war, wie gesagt, Chloe. Als nächstes haben wir diesen Zusammenschnitt, von dem ich vorher schon sprach. Den haben wir, das ist ein Zusammenschnitt einerseits aus der Präsentation, die Hans-Seidel-Stiftung in der NWG, also in der Wissenschaftlichen Gesellschaft, vorgetragen hatte. Und eigentlich war es eine Podiumsbesprechung, wo dann eben der Joseph Heilwer, das ist der Direktor für die Forstabteilung im Umweltministerium und dann auch einige Fachkräfte aus UNAM und NAST sich unterhalten hatten. Und wichtig ist dabei im Grunde, dass eben man ganz klipp und klar sehen konnte, dass bevor die Chinesen, und ich sage immer wieder, nun waren es die Chinesen, es hätte auch jemand anders sein können, bevor die groß anfingen, das Holz zu schlagen im Kavango, hatte man einfach keine Studie vorbereitet. Man wusste gar nicht, worauf man sich einließ. Mit dem Resultat, ganz unweigerlich, ist zu viel geschlagen worden. 17% sind verloren gegangen. So. Also das war schon hochinteressant, aber gucken Sie sich das selber an.
Now, this is a very interesting session because it basically has organized a panelist to share their view on the question, as many of you might have had it with regard to what is sustainable forest management. Now, I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and to welcome our viewers. There are many viewers out there who are linking in and zooming in on the platform. We are also aware of some of the Facebook viewers who are also logging on, but I also want to acknowledge those who have come to join us face to face. Welcome to this session.
On behalf of the European Union, I'm really pleased to be part of this panel discussion on sustainable forest management. We recently launched a euro 506,000 funded project called Promoting Sustainable Forest Management in the Kavango-Zambezi regions of Namibia to facilitate an active, multi-stakeholder dialogue on the concept of sustainable forest management and to improve the implementation thereof in the affected areas. This project idea emerged against the need to combat accelerated deforestation through the illegal and unsustainable harvesting of timber resources in the Kavango and Zambezi regions, and I think we all recall the coverage that was in the media on this topic. Now, besides the environmental damages, unsustainable logging aggravates soil degradation, and thereby rural development and food insecurity are also negatively affected. We believe that this project is timely since Namibia is just emerging out of one of the worst drought situations. We are going through an economic recession which is compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, And one of Namibia's strongest sectors, the tourism industry, which is really heavily dependent on community-based natural resource management activities, is still battling an uphill battle now with the impact of the pandemic. So safeguarding Namibia's natural resources can contribute to the recovery of the tourism sector. The EU is excited to be a part of this important initiative, which targets about 15 community forests in the Gaza region, nature and environmental organizations and decision makers, including ministries and local authorities. So we really need, for sustainable forest management, we need the decision makers on board, we need forestry practitioners and researchers and academia, they all need to be on board.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to everyone also from my side. I have the pleasure to give you a brief overview on our project, its objectives, as well as of the objectives and expectations of today's event. Today's panel discussion is hosted by the Hans Seidel Foundation Namibia in partnership with the Desert Research Foundation of Namibia and the Namibia Scientific Society. As the first event in a series of upcoming public discussions, this panel discussion is a key component of the Promoting Sustainable Forest Management in the Kavango-Zambezi region in Namibia project, a 3-year collaborative project of the Hans Seidel Foundation and the Desert Research Foundation with funding from the European Union. We thank the EU for that. As many of you will remember, in recent years, a growing number of media reports and related public discussions have sought to address how Namibia's hardwood resources are being harvested, in many cases unsustainably. To assist in the resolution of this concerning trend, the Hans Seidel Foundation and the Desert Research Foundation have joined forces to support the Namibian government in its efforts to safeguard against the environmental and economic threats posed by unsustainable timber usage and uncontrolled deforestation. The project aims to support an active multi-stakeholder dialogue on the concept of sustainable forest management in order to improve its implementation in the affected regions. In particular, the project aims at expanding public understanding of the concept of sustainable forest management and its benefits, at strengthening knowledge, skills and capacities to implement sustainable forest management, and it further aims at improving sensitivity to and appreciation of diverging views and perspectives on sustainable forest management. Key strategies to achieve these goals include an information campaign and publications, conferences, educational programming, study trips, as well as public dialogue events.
You must now have what we call a management plan. A management plan where we have all those aspects I mentioned earlier on, and you commit yourself that I am going to do this and this and this in order for me to achieve ABC. We have heard already here that forests provide so many things. Ecological services, social services, economic services, all those things, you must now include them. But to achieve all those, to make money out of the forest, at the same time you say, no, you are conserving the forest for environmental purposes. It's a challenge. And that's where is a critical part. Actually, every practitioner should think, how can we combine these challenging things? So you must now come up with your objective, define your resources or describe your resources, and then come up with programs. Programs and define who are the stakeholders, the people you are saving and how much you want to save for yourself. And then you put now a principled decision like either you're guided by the law, starting from international treaties, what the international actually force you to do as a country, and then maybe you come to the bloc, like African region or SADC region. All those people, they come up with some treaties or protocols, and all this, they are actually trying to agree to lead to sustainable forest management.
going into the concept of sustainable forest management, if you look around, you find there are so many definitions of sustainable forest management. FAO has a definition, the United Nations Forum in Forestry, they also have a definition. If you go into Wikipedia, you will find a definition. But if you look at these definitions, they have something in common. There are two things that sustainable forest management talks about. We want to manage our forests in a way that they are ecologically sound. We want to manage our forests in a way that they are also economically viable. And the third leg, they talk about socially acceptable or socially just. So basically, anyone defining sustainable forest management will talk about these three pillars. And the second aspect, which is also very important when we are talking about sustainable forest management, is when we are using these forests, they should provide the benefits today, but also in future. We should not use so much such that our future generation, they don't have anything to harvest from our forest. Then that does not become sustainable.
I think the important issue around this here is not necessarily that we need to look at every single tree, but as a whole to maintain the ecosystem forest, which is so important to maintain our entire planet. Just to give you an idea, right now 31% of the landmass around the world is actually covered with forests. That's around about 0.6 billion hectares. In Namibia alone, we have around about 7.2 or 7.3 million hectares of forest cover. But the sad news is that we've lost, just between 1990 and 2010, we've lost about 16.7% of our forest cover. And I think that is already, an alarming sign. As a basic rule of thumb, wherever you find forests, or where there are forests, you also have rain. Now, if our forest cover is declining, we also run risk of having less rain in our country. And yes, indeed, it is very difficult to describe the concept of sustainable forest management, or to put it in practice rather. But at the same time, let me visualize it to you, like I've done it previously at a conference we've hosted 2 years ago. Now, let's assume this is the economy, the first pillar, or one of the pillars of sustainability. Then we have the pillar of the ecology, which we have here now. And last but not least, we have the social component, the social pillar. All of them, the three need to stand together and need to find a balance in order to ensure sustainability. Otherwise, the forest ecosystem, or any kind of system, won't be in balance, won't be in tune. So if I put, this is now forestry, or the forest ecosystem, if I put it here in the middle, it's balanced. But what happens if I say I push the economy, I harvest too much, I might lose forests, and what happens? The forest ecosystem collapses. Similarly, if I push the environmental agenda too much, I might actually jeopardize the social fabric and the social dimension, and jeopardize the livelihoods of the community. So we need to make sure that we do strike a balance for the future of today's generations and future generations. And I think it is also with an increased risk of climate change. I mean, 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, when we had the worst drought in 90 years here in Namibia, actually did prove to us that we need to respond to those challenges, and that we need to find ways of improving the situation. At the end of the day, if we want to make sure that Namibians can live peacefully and sustainably also in future generations, like it is also enshrined in our Constitution in Article 95, so Article L, we need to make sure that we use our resources, but use them sustainably.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung, and I was one of the people who wrote a lot about the forest that kept disappearing about 2 years ago. So my problem is when I listen to what everybody says, there seems to be a common denominator for me. And that there are two things that are actually common denominators. The one is the repeat use. So that's where it really comes in, value on the long run. And the second one is a management plan. So what I would like to understand is, where did we go wrong that we allowed, in this case, the Chinese, it might have been the man from the moon, where did we go wrong that we allowed people to decimate our forests in such a horrendous manner, because it was almost 2 years, and instead of first planning and then deciding how to best use it, because all of you stressed the importance to plan for sustainable management and then to apply use if it is sustainable. So my problem is not, number one, I would like to understand how did we get it so wrong, and number two, what are we doing now to make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Okay.
Where did we go wrong if we somehow, we know, we talk about all these good theories and positions and policies, and then all of a sudden we have been suffering about the loss of the forest resources. Yeah, the fundamental part I should say is that forest resources is just like all other natural resources or any other resources we have in the country or in the world. We haven't gone totally too wrong to have some resources are also being taken illegally or unprocedurally, but it's just that maybe the poachers or wood poachers, they might be advanced than us. They are also doing much work to see what is that they can do to penetrate to get those resources, just like diamond theft, fish theft, all those theft, all these things. It's just like that. But it does not mean that the police or the system is dead. It does not mean that. The system is alive. That's why we are able to detect some of those things. Every second day, our people are catching 1 or 2 persons when they are practicing illegal operations. So it does not mean that when we are catching illegal operators, does not mean that there's no system in place to prevent that. Therefore, the system is there. We shall continue applying that system and close all the gaps or the gaps we are identifying to prevent a further illegal operation as is perceived.
The Hans Seitel Foundation have embarked on a national forestry prevention campaign. This is supported by the Desert Research Foundation of Namibia and financed by the European Union. Yesterday, you and a couple of specialists in the field of forestry asked the question of what is sustainable forestry in an online forum conducted at the Namibia Scientific Foundation. Please do tell us more about that. Once again, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Now, yesterday's event was on unpacking the question on what is sustainable forest management, because it's a key concept to balance the different interests around forests, looking at the economic pillar, the ecological pillar, and the social pillar. Now, if you look at it more closely, economic, obviously, you know, if you own a forest or if you manage a forest, you want to make a living in some way or another. So you have to make sure that you can live off your land and make sure it's sustainable in the sense also that obviously you only use as much as there's regrowing, so to make sure that also you can continuously use the resource over time. From another aspect, from a social perspective, obviously, you know, forests provide much more than just timber. It's obviously food, it's fodder, it's for lifestyle, recreation, etc., etc. And obviously also for cultural purposes, it's very, very important. And especially here in Namibia, many people actually depend on forests in terms of their livelihoods. And last but not least, from an environmental perspective, forests are also the home for loads of animals and plants. It's actually probably 90% or so of all biodiversity is probably happening in forests.
Okay.
So this is where obviously it gets very complicated in detail when you manage forests to strike a balance between those three pillars of sustainability. But at the end of the day, right now what we've seen over the past couple of years is an unsustainable use of the forest resources. And I've just actually read that up yesterday also, and I was quite staggered by that number, is that between 1990 and 2010, we lost about 17-18% of our forests in Namibia.
That's a lot.
You know, that was until 2010. So since 2010 or since 2015 roundabout, the forestry, the harvesting activities, the cutting of trees actually has increased significantly.
From 2015 till date?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would be very curious to see the numbers now, actually how much our forest cover, so the land which is considered a forest, has declined further now.
Yes, yes.
Ja, das war die Aufnahme, die wir gemacht haben, zusammengestellt haben. Sie werden da sehen, dass wir noch einen Teil von der Morgenshow Afrika Guten Morgen damit eingespielt haben. Und da geht es im Kurzen eben darum, dass der Leiter von der Hans-Seidel-Stiftung, also Dr. Clemens van Dodra, dann sich eben nochmal breitschlagen lassen von mir, damit er morgens auch nochmal dazu was sagt, mehr im afrikanischen Kontext. Ja, das war's für heute. Ich danke Ihnen fürs Zuhören und Zuschauen. Hoffe, Sie ein bisschen interessiert zu haben und verbleibe bis zur nächsten Woche. Bis dahin, bleiben Sie gesund und ja, ein schönes Wochenende wünsche ich Ihnen noch. Tschüss.